Welcome to day 2 of landscape painting challenge. Today's poppy field, but mostly about poppy flower. Here is outline, and with an elastic eraser removing excess amount of graphite off the paper so we don't have graphite marks that are smudging around our composition. And I also have washi tape all around borders, so after finishing painting I will have a neat and white border edge. From yesterday we have a palette that we can still use. When I'm making a tutorial I have a clean palette so you can see clearly, but now as this is challenge and landscapes are more looser with painting, here we will use yesterday's palette. So where we had blue mix, I'm adding ultramarine blue with a little touch of water. Second mix also have ultramarine blue, and I'm adding cerulean blue, which I think will nicely complement this poppy flower in front with a really nice blue mix in the background. Testing on a piece of paper, because on the paper there's always slight differences than even on a white mixing palette. Now we will first apply background, and starting with sky. Be sure that your water is clean after mixing watercolors. I'm using big round synthetic brush number 9 and applying water carefully around edge of the big poppy in front and carefully around horizon line, not going with water over the horizon line, not going with water over poppy petals, only area of the sky. I'm not using masking fluid. Everything is done only with brush, water, and avoiding area that we don't need to paint. Here you can see the amount of water. I don't have puddles, but everything is evenly covered with water. And using the same big brush, going quite quickly so that the area that we have, which is wet, is not drying. As we reach horizon line, make your watercolor layer that you applied even lighter. We see from reference photo that sky that is at the horizon line is the further area, and it's becoming much lighter, and the very top is more intense, much darker. Evenly applying, because the surface is moist, my layer will be very even. That's the importance of applying water before. And using both mixes, ultramarine blue with a touch of manganese violet from the previous day mix, and the second one is ultramarine blue with cerulean blue. And after drying, this will be a nice background for the poppy flower. Now after a few moments, my sky area is completely dry, and now we are ready to apply background of the landscape. I'm adding transparent yellow to yesterday's green mix where we had sap green, perlin green, and on the second tray I'm applying sap green. more saturated, more bigger amount of watercolors, and lemon yellow with a little touch of sap green on the side. This photo was taken in the evening, and that's why there's a lot of yellow, a lot of warmth all on the poppy and in the field, because evening sun is very warm, very yellowish. And here the same, starting with water. Be sure that your water is clean, and carefully around poppy, then around stem and around horizon line, applying water. Amount should be just enough so you don't have puddles, but it's also should stay for some moments and not dry too quickly. And carefully around stem, around poppy petals, to apply water evenly. Also moving quite quickly so that I can apply half of the land that we have, because other half is divided by stem, so we can apply only one half, applying more water so that watercolors can be pushed easily. Starting with sap green and a little touch of ultramarine blue, very light wash for the furthest part on our landscape, because that area is more paler, not so intense as the one that is closer to us. My brush strokes is quite quickly because I want to manage to apply all area while the surface is still wet, but also if it dries out, you can apply water again. And now I'm using transparent yellow with a touch of green when we are moving more to the middle part, carefully around poppy. We can do that. There's no many details that you need to avoid. If that would be, I don't know, maybe a leaf, a composition of leaves, or some flower that has teeny tiny details, then it would be harder to avoid just with brush and water. But this poppy has quite edges that we can easily do that without masking fluid. I'm moving quite quickly, as I mentioned, while the surface is still wet, applying perylene green to the lower part of painting, where we have darker area that we see in a reference photo. Smoothing edges if required. Layer starts to dry pretty quickly. Sennelier red, and my surface is still a little bit moist, and as I'm putting dots of Sennelier red, they beautifully blend into that moist surface and creating this blurry effect. I don't want to have anything in my background too detailed, too crisp. And as the poppies are closer to horizon line, they are much smaller, more closer to each other, and that we should also apply here to create a illusion that there's something far away. We don't quite see clearly what, but those dots are, as they reach closer viewer, are becoming bigger and have bigger distance between each other. Now first part is dry and I'm applying clean water to add more dots of Sennelier red. Now the background is completely dry at this moment, and I will start with Poppy using Sennelier red for the main mix, second Sennelier red together with lemon yellow, and lemon yellow is much more than Sennelier red. Adding more lemon yellow. This Poppy has a lot of yellow color in it, so lemon yellow is really nice addition. You can try cadmium yellow, Indian yellow. Now for the bottom part of the flower, there's darker beautiful spot. I'm taking indigo with perylene violet. From the first touch I took too much of indigo, so I'm removing little amount of indigo and I will add more of perylene violet, so that mix is more to the dark violet side. And testing on a piece of paper, this is perfect. Indigo with smaller amount and more is perylene violet. Now let's start with Poppy painting. Be sure that your water is clean after mixing watercolors. Using number 9 round synthetic brush, applying water to the whole surface of the Poppy, and we'll apply watercolors Sennelier red and lemon yellow with Sennelier red. Always reserve white area wider than it appears in the reference. Here in this composition, in this photo, we have a very intense shine area on the bottom part of Poppy flower, and as you can see, I left bigger area for that light, and now I'm applying more water because that area dried out from the layers that I applied in the first take. Now I'm adding, starting from the stem area, this mix of indigo with perylene violet, carefully, not to overpaint, not to go too dark too fast, just enough to apply carefully around stem. We don't want to have this color on stem area. Now painting stem, applying small amount of water to make the stem slightly moist, and using greens that we have on our mixing palette. Stem in this case will be darker than the background. I decided that I like how background looks, especially like the color of sky and how it looks together with red bright poppy. So I will leave background as it is. I will not make it darker, I will not make it detailed. I want to have poppy flowers super detailed, and for this I need really intense stem. So I'm adding on the right side of the stem shadow area and smoothing applied green watercolor mix so that this layer of line on the right side looks smoother and left side is left lighter because that's where light is shining on stem area. Now I need to wait until poppy flower head is completely dry, and starting with poppy flower painting, we need to add those interesting folds. I'm adding more Sennelier red, and to Sennelier red I'm adding Perlin Maroon, which is very intense red dark pigment, and with this amount of watercolors using number 7 round synthetic brush, I'm applying folds, veins, all that looks in the reference darker, that we see that there's shadow area there, shadow from folds, shadow from some corner of petal. Not smoothing, crisp, detailed marks, spots. We will layer later with more watery washes, but this is the moment that we need to add those crisp lines, crisp spot that we see on poppy head. Taking mix of lemon yellow and Sennelier red, applying, it's like a wash, glaze of this watercolor mix with round synthetic brush. We can see from reference there's a lot of yellow because of the evening sun, and that's what I'm applying right now. Now I'm taking finer tip brush and I will add more details, more finer lines. Using round synthetic brush, applying more of Sennelier red and Perylene maroon to the darker parts of poppy flower head, adding a little bit more water to Sennelier red and glazing the whole area. We need to build up more layers to make it more vivid, more darker. We don't need so much white space that we have at the lower part of this flower. adding Perlin Violet to my mixing palette and adding more contrast, more darker layer to the lower part, and some folds, shadows. This is the moment that you are building up more layers and making this poppy pop from our background. With very light wash of Sennelier Red, I'm glazing the curved petal. More layers for stem area, making it more vivid, more darker, so it stands out from background. Now it slightly blends with background, but we need to make it come closer to us. With Iridicator brush, I want to make some corrections to the edges, make them more precise, slightly blend the little gap of white line that I have with background, and Iridicator brush does this wonderfully. Removing washi tape when your painting is completely dry. And I really enjoyed this painting session. Hope you too and are following together with me in this landscape painting challenge. Thank you and see you tomorrow with new challenge, new day, and we'll see what it will bring to us. Thank you.